Hey VAT, welcome back. Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to do some painting in Adobe Photoshop. Looking at the example that I have on my screen right now, you can see that this student work is chock full of blending techniques and shading techniques. There is no photograph here. This is all drawn in the program. The drawing, obviously you can see some of the hard lines that were used with a hard brush to look sort of like pencil, and then additionally though, some of the shading is very soft. Some of the soft shading in the cheeks here. That's what we're going to kind of look at today. The two top things that we're looking to learn how to do today are to be able to use brushes that are soft. So adjusting the hardness and the softness of the brushes is essential. And then also at the top of your control panel, we have the option to change the opacity of our brushes as well, which will allow for some sort of softer blending in some of these areas like the lips and in the cheeks and so on. So let's get started. We're going to start off with a new document just for practice by going to File, New, 8x10 or a US paper sized. We can call this Paint Play or Paint Practice, and 300 resolution is kind of a lot for something like that's just for practice. So I'm going to do a 72 resolution. RGB color is fine. We're not going to be printing this. So I'm going to hit OK, and it creates my brand new piece of paper. The first thing that I'm going to do as an experiment is I'm going to grab the brush in the toolbar. I'm going to add to the bottom of my toolbar where we have the color swatches. I'm going to make sure that I'm painting with black just off the off the color picker with black. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush to about, mine is an 80 pixel size brush, and I'm simply going to, by default, the brushes are set to 100% opacity so that when we brush, it's 100% opaque. There's a couple different things that we're learning today. So the first thing is, how do I get softer edges? Well, inside of this dialog box we have the hardness of the brush that we can dilute and turn it down. I'm going to turn my brush hardness down to 6% and try that again just so you can see the difference between the two. A very soft edge brush is created almost like a spray paint effect. And additionally, I can reduce the opacity of that brush as well. So let's say I reduce that opacity down to a 30% opaque brush. And then when I brush, not only can you see the soft edges of the brush, but you can also see how it's almost so see-through that you can barely see it. And the white of the paper is shining through, so it's becoming like a soft gray. However, the secret here to blending is to be able to layer painted layers with different opacities, to be able to layer them up to create the blended effect that we want. So to illustrate that, I'm just simply going over that first mark that I made, and each time I'm going a little shorter, a little shorter, a little shorter, a little shorter, and you can see how that effect will help you build up colors or values in what you're trying to recreate is a photo, and that's made up of light. So a black and white photo is made up of values, a color photo is made up of colors, but to be able to capture the lighting in a photograph, we have to be able to blend and layer paint brushes on top of each other. And so the softness of the brush and the opacity of the brush are the keys to getting that sort of a job done. Additionally, if we were to start to think about color, we can play around with some color here. I'm going to pick a blue, sort of blue brush, and I'm going to start working the exact same way from left to right, stopping just a little bit short each time I go to build up one side of this line. Okay, so I get that gradient effect from like saturated to non-existing, and it's a soft sort of transition. And on the other side, I'm going to pick out another color, say like an orange color, and I'll start from this side now and work my way towards the other side, stopping to preserve some of that pure color, stopping a little bit short, and then working the exact same way by repeating and layering up this color. and in the middle the two colors sort of blend together. So if we're looking to recreate a photo and having sort of soft blending options, this is the way to go. Now obviously in my drawing here, where the photograph is, I'm looking to put in some areas of color, not all of the areas of color, but you can see with the shadow that I'm doing up here in the hat and on the forehead, and even in the cheeks below the sunglasses, I was able to use that opacity with a dark, sort of like a dark blue, almost black brush, and I turned on the opacity to like 10%. And go over it a few times, and in some areas it's a little darker than others, and some areas it's a little lighter, but with that opacity and with the softness of my brushes I'm able to get the effect that I want. So I hope that this tutorial helps you as we start to get into the coloring. I'll leave you with the last important thing of the day, and that is when we have a drawing already existing, and if we were to want this to look okay and want our drawing to still stand out, we have to move that layer of color down below the drawing so that the drawing still is on the top of our paint. So, alright, thanks so much for watching. Hope this helps.